I was 5 years old when I first got diagnosed. We started noticing symptoms of the disease when we were on a trip. I started drinking a lot of water. I was losing sleep, and whenever I would drink a lot of water, I would have to go to the bathroom after.
My mom noticed that when she had him and I was working, he was really thirsty, he wasn't really playing, he wasn't acting himself. He spent a lot of time being babysat with his cousin, and so they usually played together, and he wasn't doing that anymore. And so we just went to the doctor and asked to investigate what was going on with him, and all she really said was that maybe he was nervous about starting kindergarten and that he was anxious. We did try some tests with water and getting him to drink less water and eat more. Those were the only things that the family doctor had us do, but there was no real answers from that. That was our first indication that something was wrong, and then we started that summer doing the investigations. We did all the things she suggested, and it was just an obsession with water. It was, he would wake up in the night, it had to be cold water, so we weren't getting a lot of sleep, and we were really frustrated with the family doctor, so we ended up going to Children's Hospital. And as we told them the story and we explained the symptoms, they were pretty quick to say that they had kind of an idea of what he could be exhibiting, and so they would do some tests that could help them diagnose it. So it was actually at Children's Hospital in early July of that summer that with an X-ray, they were pretty quick to find out that he had a fracture in his skull, and the symptoms he was exhibiting was diabetes insipidus, and those two things can be related. So that's how he got his initial diagnosis, and then we had to do a lot of investigating with biopsies to actually name it diabetes insipidus and name it Langerhans cell histiocytosis.
Langerhans cell histiocytosis is similar to a cancer. It's a white blood cell disease where basically the Langerhans cells will multiply and attack an area of your body that they aren't supposed to. For me, that caused damage to the base of my skull and my pituitary gland. And then diabetes insipidus, because of the damage to the pituitary gland, I'm missing a hormone that controls water balance in the kidneys. So now I have to take a medicine for that works as the missing hormone.
Once we had an oncologist on board, there is a protocol. 6 in a million kids are diagnosed with this disease. So it was 6 weeks of a steroid treatment along with weekly chemotherapy. So we did that for 6 weeks. They do scans to see how the treatment is going, and in Mario's case, it hadn't really done anything. So the protocol also says that if it doesn't work in 6 weeks, to do another 6 weeks. So we did another 6 weeks. So 12 weeks of the protocol, more scans, and then at that point, sadly, he was not showing improvement. And so then it took a couple of months of doing once a month chemotherapy instead of once a week, removing the prednisone from his treatment, and then eventually, with research, they decided that they would do a more intensive chemotherapy. So when that finally came about as a decision, because it's not something they do all the time, it required a lot of research, so it took some time to get started. It was a 6-month chemotherapy trial with different chemotherapies, and he would go every 3 weeks for chemo, and it would be like an all-day chemotherapy rather than a couple hours, so it was way more intensive. He had to miss school for 6 months. But after 3 months of that treatment, they did a test scan, and there was improvement. So then they continued with that treatment for another 3 months, and then after that, it was considered remission, except it's one of those diseases that you don't really go in remission, you just get it quiet. So he was quiet, and they were happy with that. Oh, absolutely. I think that there were a couple of times when people in the community heard about what was happening to him, and then they banded together. So his soccer team did a big event for him. You know, people made him feel special and let him know he was brave. So I think that was really helpful. He also had to get a Hot Wheels car every time we left chemotherapy. So he was always apprehensive about his chemos. He didn't like the needle pokes, but he loved knowing that at the end, on our way home, we would stop in and he would be able to get a new Hot Wheels car. So that was definitely something that kept his spirits up.
There's definitely some important moments when others really came together and helped me out. One of my soccer teams did a big event for me. I was given tickets to lots of sporting events, Whitecaps and Canucks games. I was in the newspaper a few times, and obviously just support from family and friends really helped.